Hi everybody, it's Cheryl from Deep Creek Vintage. I'm over here in the cottage today working on a project, so I wanted to take you along. I'm getting ready to make a little flag because the store needs a little bit of decor for our upcoming 4th of July celebrations, right? It's the nation's birthday, and it's also our birthday. It's our 6th birthday of Deep Creek Vintage, so I'm really excited about the upcoming month. It's just a little project. It was something that was going to be quick, so I thought that I would take you along with me. So I'm starting off with this little palette. It's about 12.5 by 23 inches wide, and it's going to be so fast you're going to be amazed by it. I also have my red, white, and blues of DIY clay paint. If you don't know about DIY paint, it's an all-natural paint. It only has 9 ingredients. It's one of the only paint companies that will actually put the ingredients on their label, so that's pretty impressive. The clay paint, the clay in the paint is really a high grade, so it also requires a lot of pigments in order to color it, and that's why you get such really good coverage with it. So this little 8-ounce tub will get you pretty far in a project. So I'm going to push the camera down to my work surface. I don't want to turn my device. It's saying that I have to turn my device. There we go. People have been having trouble with lives lately, so we'll see what happens. This is kind of a test. I have some other things coming up, but I'll let you in on those things later. You know you're not used to seeing me live very often. And I'm calling today Frizzy Hair Day. So I've got different paint brushes. I've got just regular art brushes that I use a lot. I've got some chip brushes because I want this project to be fun and fast and a little bit rustic. And then I have some paint pixie brushes in different sizes. So this one's the new, like the new DIY brush, paintbrush. So the colors that we're using are beadboard. DIY paint has 3 whites with different bases in them. And then we have Hay Sailor, which is a true navy. It's really pretty. Nice and saturated, which is what we want. And then I've chosen to use Marquee. We also have another red called Carnival Red, which is really pretty as well. It's a little bit more warm to me. So like I said, I've got this little palette thing. I picked it up. It's one of some that I purchased for maybe future classes or just making things for the shop. And I'm going to take it's been sanded, so I'm taking my off and making sure I have a lot of the dust off. So like I said a minute ago, the dimensions are 12.5 by 23-ish because it's not cut straight, which makes it really nice for a flag. And I've got it measured out a little bit, so I want about a 6-inch square. And it might not be totally square because, like I said, these pallet boards aren't exactly square. So what I've done is I've decided, because I have to add stars to my square, I've decided that it would be a good idea to go ahead and paint the blue section first so that could dry and we would have time to work on the stenciling. And I didn't grab a stencil brush, uh-oh. And that just makes it a little bit quicker for us, I think. But this paint dries really fast, typically. But since it's Frizzy Hair Day, it's also very humid out. I was over here at the cottage working on the custom dresser that I showed you all yesterday. I'm going to use my chip brush because, like I said, I want it to be pretty rustic. And I'll start off kind of dry brushing. We'll see how this particular brush works on this board. You want to make sure you have good contact with your painter's tape. I like it more saturated, like up top. So obviously we're not going to be able to do 13 stripes, right? The 13 stripes were for our original 13 colonies. We don't have enough room for that. Well, I guess we do, but we're going to take some artistic license. If you tune in, tell me where you're tuning in from. Are you local? Are you somebody that's from out of town? Do you have big plans for 4th of July? See how quick that was? I will be working, I'm sure. So I've got my red and I've got my white. So that's already done. It's actually, because the wood is raw, a lot of the moisture is soaking up into the wood, so that's good for our purposes here today. So we have a nice little square. Might be a little bit off, but that's okay. And then we're going to start with red, right? You have to start with red. So I'm just going to go ahead and use one of the boards that's already here, because as the size of my stripes, because it would probably be too busy otherwise. I probably should have gone ahead and put paint on there because my brushes are pretty big. Let's see. It's just be a lot quicker this way. Let's see, I don't know if that's dry yet. I could probably put a little bit of tape there. But if it was dry, that would be ultimate. There we go. Where'd my brush go? Here it is. So what I'll probably want to do, because that's more saturated than I like, I'll probably go back and distress it a little bit. I don't usually make 4th of July projects, but I saw this little palette over here, and I had a friend online that did one, and I went digging through my stash yesterday to get things out to decorate the store. A little bit, I won't overdo it. We have a pretty red front door. Hey Jill, thanks for tuning in and telling us where you're from. So you're a neighbor. Have you been to the shop? Yeah, you have. Let's see. Go. I don't need to do that one, do I? How fast is this? Pretty quick. So like I said, I had these, I bought them wholesale, but I bet you could get something along these lines at one of the many craft stores we have in town. So with you can see with the clay in the paint, it allows you to see how the paint is drying. I'm gonna go ahead and put that there, even though it might be a little bit wet. So that allows you to actually watch as the paint dries. Hey Callie girl, are you still on vacation? I was jealous. Okay, my paint's still really wet, so the tape's not wanting to stick very well. But we are going to move on to the blue. I mean the white. I know my flag. There's the white. I'm going to use one of my craft brushes this time. which is a lot, I'll use it sideways. The craft brushes are a lot more refined than using something like the chip brush. So to me, a lot of times a chip brush, depending on the application that you're using it for, is a lot better, especially for dry brushing or something like that. But this has enough texture left in it that we should be able to wet distress it and still get some more natural looking lines to it. We want it saturated enough so we can tell it's white, because the background is that gold color. I really don't even need to tape these, but I can be a little bit messier if it's taped. This is so cute, and it's so fast. Look, we're just going to do this here in a few minutes together. I'm going to go this way because that didn't stick, so. I give you a mini lesson in stenciling. I'm a stenciler from way back when you used to build murals on your walls with stencils. I got a little bit of red clay on there. That's good. All right. That was pretty fast, wasn't it? And I forgot to cut my tape. It was a good little trick too. I'll just have to save it for another time. All right. I'm going to close up my paint pots. My brushes aside so they don't get all crispy, and it's really humid here today, so they didn't dry. This blue didn't dry totally, so I'm going to just stick the blow dryer on it for probably about 15 seconds. There we go. Isn't that cute? I'm going to grab a stencil brush. Is anybody still with me? I sure appreciate it. Okay, so a stencil brush, right? This one I really like because it's a lot more dense. These come from the craft store, and they're okay. They have longer bristles, so they move around a little bit more. This one, like I said, is more dense, and it won't move around some more. I'm a swirler, and this, it's a little bit bent, but it was only a couple of them. I picked it up at Joann's yesterday. Like I said, we're going to do artistic license on this project, so I'm not going to line them all up. And I'm going to just place it however I want them. I really like the little ones. I'm afraid that because of the part that was bent, that it will not lay very flat for me. So I'm going to tape some of this down. I really don't want this big star, because it's just too big scale-wise for this project. I'm going to tape it off. And so when I'm teaching my students to stencil, the first thing you want to know is less is more. Actually, less is a lot more when it comes to stenciling and the amount of paint that you put on your brush. I guess we could use that one maybe. We'll just leave it as a maybe. So I've taped off the sections that I don't want. In a perfect world, you might want to make sure it lays more flat. So you need to have enough on your brush. You need to have enough on your brush to get it wet, right? Because it was dry when I started. So I'm going to work on my paper. You're probably not going to see it very well because it's white on white, but I'm working it into my brush. But that's more because I want my brush to be wet. I don't want it to start off too dry. And when I say wet, I mean stencil brush wet, not dip in the paint pot wet. And I'm even going to be able to use a lot of that paint, and I'm also using my DIY paint. And I'm going to go in, and I like to start in an area. Can you see? I like to start in an area that has no stencil, has no opening over here. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to get my motion going, and I'm going to start working my way onto my surface. And this doesn't look like much, but it's going to, as I add more to it, and when I lift it, you're going to be able to see the difference. So paint. We can add shadowing by adding more. This is the first time I've ever done anything like artistic for the flag. I'm kind of a stickler for flag etiquette. But it really is a beautiful subject. So we're going to use it. So I'm going to lift this a little bit, and I'm going to show you and not take it all the way off, but we can always go back and add more. So I think that we need a little bit more in the middle of this, the body of this particular star. And if we weren't on primetime television right now, I would probably either wait until this had a little bit more time to cure and go, or add some kind of a top coat to it so that my brush would move more freely. Now, some people like to pounce, so I'm going to show you that particular. Some people like to pounce. The thing with pouncing is you want to make sure that you don't pounce too hard, because you want, stenciling is meant to be soft. I'm probably a hard pouncer, but the thing about pouncing, let me show you. The thing about pouncing is when you pounce a lot and you pounce too hard, you move your bristles. And if you've got, can you see that? You move your bristles to the side. So you're pouncing, 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 and you're getting those lines. That's how they end up getting into your open space. So pounce straight up and down, and don't pounce too hard, because look, the difference. Can you see the difference? Let's do it this way. We'll do straight up and down and pouncing harder. So just imagine all of that paint that's on the bristles and how that's going to lay inside of your stencil. So pounce up and down straight, not bending the brush. Or you can swirl. Nice and soft, you can swirl. Okay, so I'm going to move this off, and we're going to see how that looks. Isn't that adorable? It's so cute. I think we could use another star or two. Let's do them. I think I'm trying to get this one. I don't think I'm going to get them all that way. I've got a little one right here I'm trying to watch out for, so let's just try those. Just stick the stencil inside. So here, see the difference between how soft this one is and this one, how much movement it has in there. So I'm going to go back to my preferred method of swirling. Make sure I don't get off my blue. Think I need more? I think I do. These two this way. And the boards are uneven too, so that's a consideration when you're working. See, it lifted up a little bit here, but that's probably because the boards were uneven. Oh, see, this was on my stencil. There you go. I think I'm done. What do you think? So the only thing is I need to cover up my little mistake right here. And then, oops, brass eagle. And then we need a top coat on it. And it actually seems to be pretty dry. Let's see if I have something close by. I'm not used to being live on Facebook. Certainly not used to doing projects on Facebook, as some of you probably know if you're local. So if you can bear with me a little bit, we'll have a little bit of fun because I have some other things lined up that we could certainly do together. Let's see. And I may be doing some art in the garden projects where you can come to the shop. So did you see how fast this is dried? Not this part that I just touched up, but it's like, it's so quick. It dries so quickly, like I said, for two reasons, because it's clay paint and also because the surface that we painted on was unfinished, so a lot of the moisture absorbs into that finish. A big one on knowing a little bit about what it is you're starting with. So I'm going to go ahead and dry this real quick. This probably would have dried on its own if it wasn't so humid today. It would have already been dry. There you go. So I think also that this is going to be, oh, I know I have this. I'm going to bang this one. So DIY paint has a clear coat and it's called Big Top. And it is all natural as well. So there is, I mean, it's actually kind of sweet smelling right here. I'm going to go ahead and put that on. And what's great about this too, on top of the clay paint, is you can actually see first where it's been applied, and then you'll be able to see as it dries. I'm going to go on the white first because some of that red lifted up. It's going to be fine when I go back and sand it a little bit. And I think I may add a little bit of Dark and Decrepit or black wax on top of this. That's what I'm planning to do anyway. And if I do that, I will either do a quick little video and put it on here, but this has to dry. I don't even know how long we've been on here working, so probably maybe 15 minutes, if that. It's going to be cute. Like I said, I'm working on some items to decorate the store with. And I'll probably do an extra one because it will probably sell because it's so cute. And maybe we'll go together and decorate the front porch because that's always fun. Our front doorway. There we go. It's going to dry and have a nice matte sheen to it. See how the colors brought out at first? When the colors were wet, they look a lot like that when they were wet, when we first put them on. And then as clay paint, as it dries, it becomes a little more dull looking. And then when you put the top coat on, no matter what the top coat is, you could be using, you know, this big top, or you could be using wax. It'll come back to its vibrancy. And there we go. Look what we made together today in about 15 minutes. How's that? Fun. All right. Thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Thanks for bearing with me and my my novice at going live doing a little project, but I think this was a nice quick little project. And I'm going to run and do some more errands today. Thank you again, and we'll see you soon.